All right, we are back with another edition, another week of Paisley Burger Betting College Football Podcast. Mr. Paisley, we got week 10 in the books. Another up and down week, a lot of thrilling ends, a lot of close games here. And it looks like we're just about 50% again. But other than that, how's your weekend?
Yeah, it was good, Case. A lot of college football is delivering every weekend. So whatever happens, wins, losses, we're not seeing as many wins as we'd like to, but some of these games are crazy, just late finishes, back and forth, crazy, bad beats at the end, crazy covers that we had. We'll get into some of those that happen. Obviously, but it's every week. Like usually have like one or two a season, but it's been every week with some of these late game bad beats or something like that. So definitely been frustrating. And again, like you said, we're right around 500. I don't know how we keep doing this. I know it's a very 50-50 gambling space that we're in, but it is insane how we are just on 50-50 every single week. So did it again, but we'll get into the recaps and some of the other things, but another just again, okay week, like nothing crazy, but maybe we'll burst through one of these times. Still 4 or 5 weekends left here.
Yeah, for sure. And we appreciate everyone listening out there, whether it be on YouTube or X or Spotify. We'll break down our cards here from Saturday, then we'll get into the game by game breakdowns as we always do. And then towards the end, we have our winners and losers of the week. But yeah, Paisley, I guess we're gonna cover a lot of these games. We don't have to get too detailed on the cards. I saw you went 11-11 again, like you said, and then 1-1 on the locks. So really can't get more 500 than that. Literally just all ones across the board. And then I went similar, but less picks 7-8-1. So just a hair below 500. And I will thank the Texas Longhorns for that, for pushing on Texas. And I know we'll get to that game, but that was just an absolute should not have been a push. Texas was covering this game. They were handily winning this game. Of course, you mentioned too that questionable call when we were just talking off the podcast there that really could have changed the spread and that outcome. A lot of bad beats on my card. Cal, absolute disgraceful ending of that game. Of course, that was my underdog pick. I know Paisley, yours lost as well with Delaware, so I guess it didn't hurt our parlay, but that was just frustrating from the spread. They really didn't deserve to cover that game, but they found a way. They fought hard in the fourth quarter. They got a stop. They made this thing a game. They had the ball, literally a chance to go down and force overtime, and then, of course, the pick six. So just ugly ending on that one. Let's see on my card. I also had the over in the Navy North Texas game. That was unfortunate. It wasn't really even close. Surprisingly, low scoring there. Here's one I missed on. Kansas minus 24.5. Oklahoma State played the best football they possibly did all season long. I mean, it wasn't a close game. It was like 38-21 or whatever it was, but literally the first time I think like Oklahoma State actually played some decent offensive football and was able to string some drives together. Was, of course, against Kansas this week. Let's see some of the others that we won't cover. NC State plus 5.5 over Georgia Tech. That was a nice one that I had right. They win the game outright, and we'll get to this later in the show too, just how crazy right now the ACC is all around. I mean, even the Big 12. But just a lot of chaos on my card. And then, of course, we both, I think, had Florida plus 7.5, which will thank Gunnar Stockton. He will be on my Christmas list this year. I might send him a card with that kneel down on the 1 yard line. How beautiful was that? It kind of washes, I guess, the Cal bad beat for me. But like you said, up and down day, 50% once again. And yeah, we'll move on to week 11.
Yeah, and the Georgia one and the Cal literally happened within like 30 seconds of each other. Like you said, I was getting the text back and forth, and we were going back and forth all day, and that was hilarious. So just as the emotions got skyrocketed there with the Florida cover, it just got deflated with the Cal. And the Cal interception was on like the midfield. He returned it 50 yards. It wasn't like he returned it like
down. Just
yards.
Get down.
He returned it. He's got a couple juke moves, 50 yards. They just need to push him out of bounds or something. Could have got the cover there. But yeah, we'll get to some of these games. Illinois looked sharp. A little slow start, and then they just poured it on Rutgers. I had them minus 13.5. They crushed them. The Duke game, we won't get into that one, but that was a wild game. But nobody could really watch it because it was on the AC Network and the whole YouTube TV thing that, we could spend a whole podcast on that and how ridiculous that was. And I know me and you were some Sling day passes access. So shout out Sling for that, getting us to watch some of the games. But that Duke game was crazy. Wish I could have watched it. And they get us the cover there at the plus 3.5. The Air Force game was another great game. It was so back and forth. Army did kind of deserve to win that one. Air Force had a chance there late. Minnesota was up the whole game. I had the -3.5. Blew it late against Michigan State. That was an unfortunate cover, which I had at -2.5 in real life on the page. When we post them, 3.5, game lands 3. So just another example of the numbers really mattering. This one was a sneaky go in case. I knew Mexico. I kind of like this one. Didn't bring it up on the pod. Then I did my own research. A couple of guys that I follow and listen to closely, they really like New Mexico. So everything was aligning there. Get the outright win against UNLV that we were calling fraudulent, along with Virginia. But Virginia obviously escapes with a win. But I'm telling you, some of these teams, you can't get lucky every single week. Notre Dame just did not show up for the first half, unfortunately, off of a bye week, which was very surprising. We'll get into the special teams woes, but that game almost gave me a heart attack. So that was great from Notre Dame perspective. Delaware, like you said, just didn't even get off the bus. Their quarterback was questionable, and that was something I found out after we did the podcast. He ended up playing, and it didn't even matter. They just got crushed by Liberty. So I got to give Liberty credit there. The Mississippi State-Arkansas game, ton of points in that one, did clear the over there. Wasn't really a lot of scoring early on. The Purdue one was one of my favorite calls. I wish I would have talked about that one more, maybe a little bit on our picks that we gave out, because they were covering the whole game and almost gave Michigan a little scare at the Big House there at night. They had some chances, Case, to maybe win that game out. They had a couple fourth downs that didn't go their way. But if they would have converted some of those and punched in some touchdowns, it would have been a whole different story. Arizona crushing Colorado. Colorado, I think, is officially dead. Just got absolutely their doors blown off. We'll get to the big USC game, Nebraska. You did get the cover there, but USC did get the win. Arkansas State was another one I really liked. They got the win outright as 7.5-point dogs against Troy. Just shouting out some of these smaller games because they still win you the same amount of money if you're betting the same unit size. And then the over in the Hawaii-San Jose State was awesome. That almost cleared at halftime. So some really nice calls on my part, but then definitely the losses in some of the bigger games that we're going to get to were definitely frustrating.
Yeah, that Arkansas State plus 7.5 was a great pick. And it seems like there's just every week we see these group of 5 teams. There's a lot of major upsets in those leagues. And, we don't talk about it a ton on this podcast. Of course, we talk about the bigger games and deservedly so, but there's definitely money to be made. Like if you're following some of these conferences and players and, following injuries, and I guess the case for Delaware, it doesn't matter, but there's definitely a lot of opportunity there because it seems like every week there's some, heavy favorites that go down. And I know 7.5 is not an extreme line, but, Arkansas State handled that game. They won that game very easily. It seemed like against Troy. And then, even also in the FCS, Paisley, I don't even know. Maybe we would have had time in the winners and losers, but I saw Indiana State upset South Dakota State, and I saw Tarleton State, that number 2 9-0 team. They finally lost. They lost to Albaline Christian, upset them
craziness
this week. So I don't know. I was maybe going to throw Indiana State in at the end for my winner, but no, I won't waste that on them. But I saw they got a big win over South Dakota State. So just seems like there's a lot of chaos, not only at the top of the Division I and college football playoff implications, but just going all the way down to the group of 5 to all the way down to the FCS. Just seems like it's a chaotic year, from the entirety of the league.
Yeah, shout out to Sycamores from Indiana State, Larry Bird's alma mater, so alumni there. And another one that we didn't put on the page, but I didn't really like a pick in that game was Fresno State beating Boise State. Boise kind of fallen off. No one's really talking about them. They were 17-point dogs in that game and won the game outright. So just to your point, a lot of money to be made on some of these G5 or lower level schools that no one's really watching, day in and day out.
And I know you just touched on it, Paisley, but I do want to highlight again, I did get the blackout cover there in Lincoln, Nebraska, plus 4.5 and a hard fought, ugly game. Also got the under on that. I got a double whammy there. That was a nice one. Rooting for the outright win for Nebraska. Didn't happen. Of course, they lost in the most Nebraska fashion possible. And I don't think we actually, we are going to break this game down later. Okay. But that with that handoff, that was crazy at the end on 4th and 1. But nonetheless, another week down. We're still plus 10 units on the underdogs, I guess. We lost both this week, unfortunately. I don't know about you, Paisley. I think maybe we should just stop keeping track of it. It seems like when we're keeping track, everything starts to go south on the underdogs. But, we didn't even know we were plus 12 units until a few weeks ago. Right. And then, right when we do that, we start to lose. So I don't know, maybe we just won't say anything to the end of the year, and then we'll come December and we'll be plus like 25 units.
That's a great point. Yeah, the first time we went 0-2 all season, so it was great we lasted this long. So, I think we're only due for a 2-0 week next week, so stay tuned.
All right, might as well jump right in. We got our game recaps that we'll do quickly, just a few minutes on each game, and then the winners and losers at the end. But Paisley, might as well just start off right off the bat. Hugh Freeze out at Auburn. Seems like every time we hop on Sunday, and it actually is happening. Every Sunday we have another major coaching firing. It really started with James Franklin 4 weeks ago, but even before that, there were major firings. I mean, you count Virginia Tech, all these, other schools, Arkansas, but the first major one was really Franklin, and then it just kind of domino affected. We had Napier, and now we have Hugh Freeze. So that's 3 SEC jobs now open. They lose, of course, a disgraceful performance, 10-3 against Kentucky. And I don't know. It's just insane to me how we have. It feels like college is turning more into the NFL, where it's just the expectations and the donors. It's just happening like overnight. And I guess Napier and Hugh Freeze really isn't surprising. We kind of saw this coming for weeks. I thought maybe you'd wait to the end of the year, and I think it's just because every team's now trying to get a head start, with the transfer portal and the rebuilding, and they're, it is turned in more to the NFL, but just insane where we're at. And it makes me think who 7 days from now we'll talking about next Sunday of who's going to be fired.
Yeah, that's what we should maybe preview who's going to be fired this week and maybe try and call our shot. But yeah, that was crazy. I did not watch 1 second of this game. I was so back and forth on Kentucky or Auburn. It was like right around 10.5, 11. And then I opened up the app this morning and saw they scored 3 points at home against a defense that gave up 40-plus to Tennessee just the week before. Arch Manning had a couple nice drives on Kentucky. So, not a great defense. And at home, they just couldn't get the quarterback right. They had a great team. Defense was playing awesome. I think they lost 10-3, like you said. Like, it wasn't like their defense gave up a ton of points, but just the quarterback position is so important, and they put a lot of stock into this year. The schedule is really tough. Didn't really make a lot of sense. But like you said, there was some rumors thrown around. Apparently, Hugh Freeze likes to be golfing a lot in the offseason. It wasn't really hitting the recruiting trail. So, stuff like that comes out. And then, maybe he lost the team, lost the fan base. And that just seems to be it nowadays. Case if you lose your team, lose the fan base, the donors don't like you, you're done. They don't care how much money they got to pay or how good you were in the past. But Hugh Freeze was not really a good stint at Auburn. I think people were expecting a lot more. And now I think they're still paying Gus Malzahn. I saw this is the third coach now. They still have to pay. You have to pay the guy that was previous before Hugh Freeze. So they are really tacking this on. So it's just getting ugly at some of these universities.
If you look up Hugh Freeze, by the way, his name on Google, a picture of him golfing is his official Wikipedia page.
You should go on the tour and not be a coach.
I saw that on Twitter, and you just mentioned I confirmed that. That's amazing. But anyway, another week going to be chaotic. I know we're just mainly focused on betting on this page, but we got to touch on this stuff. It's just insane, the state of the SEC, college football in general, all these changes. It's going to be an interesting coaching carousel. Definitely, I think the most exciting in several years, probably ever, honestly, with all these major jobs. And I'm sure some coaches will be leaving other programs to go take one of these jobs. So we could just have a whole domino effect of like a dozen Power 4 jobs being, changed come next year. But all right, that's enough for Auburn. We'll put them in the box of teams that we hopefully won't cover again for the remainder of the season. Now moving on to a team that I did actually have in this category at one point, but we'll touch on it more for Ohio State's take, Paisley. Penn State going on the road to Columbus over the weekend. It kind of went as expected. I mean, Penn State kept it close early on, but Ohio State really just dominated. Their offense is one of the best offenses I could remember. Their receiving core is just loaded with Carnell Tate and Jeremiah Smith, Julian Sain. I mean, I don't think the Penn State secondary is that bad. I don't think they're elite by any means, but Ohio State just felt like they could do whatever they wanted whenever they needed. I'm more impressed with Ohio State than I was walking into this game, even though, the score, and I know Penn State's had their catastrophic season going on, but I was thoroughly impressed with Ohio State. I don't know if this has done enough to prove to everybody nationally that, they are tier 1 and then everyone else is tier 2. You have Indiana, you have A&M, but they're doing what they need to be doing. And I still think Penn State has some NFL talent on the roster, even though they're not playing together as a team and they're not a good team. They still have playmakers. And for Ohio State to just kind of go and bully them for 4 quarters, or at least 2 quarters. I know the first 2 was a little strange with those turnovers and whatnot, but second half, Ohio State's offense, I think Julian Sain might be the best quarterback right now. He just doesn't seem to be missing anything. And maybe it's those two receivers being that elite, but man, he just looks like he could put the ball wherever he wants. It just makes it look easy. So very, very impressed with Ohio State. And they did get the cover too after that slow start also.
Yeah, he does make it look easy. It's 100%. He's just such a fluid thrower. He's so accurate too. Like even some of the shorter passes, and people like you look on screen, he throws a 50-yard pass in the air. That's really hard to do and put it right on the numbers. Very interesting. Jim Knowles going man to man the whole game. Case the more and more this keeps prolonging, is he an inside plan from Ohio State? Because he's not really helping his case. Because some of the moves he's calling, just going like, "Yep, we're just going to go one-on-one with Jeremiah Smith." Like that was very questionable. And yeah, you should look at the total yards: 480 yards, 316 passing, 164 on the ground. They were really just slicing and dicing them. But like you said, Penn State hung in there in the first half. They got that nice turnover. They had that one drive that was really nice. And we don't mean to like nitpick or like really, but you got to try and find some advantages or some holes in these top teams. Some of those outside zone runs or like really stretching them horizontally that Penn State was doing was kind of giving Ohio State some fits. They were getting in the sweeps or more the outside zone looks was really causing a lot of problems for Ohio State. And that's how they kind of got run on a little bit more than I thought. They kind of clamped down after that one drive, but maybe that's an area you could try and do. Maybe run on them, like really slow the game down a little bit, keep their offense off the field. So maybe that's an area you could attack them, but they really clamped down the second half. Good adjustments by Matt Patricia. Their D line was just getting such great pressure on the Penn State quarterback, just especially in that second half. He had no time to throw. So just a dominant performance. It was a little close, like you said, but then they really showed their true colors there in the second half. And yeah, they're just a complete team. Like I think for sure Julian Saint is way better than Will Howard last year. I think they had better pieces around Will Howard last year, but the quarterback play is taking it up to another notch. Like I think him and Ty Simpson are clearly 1 and 2 right now in the Heisman race. Mendoza's up there too. He's playing really solid ball, but Saint is just very elite. He could do a lot of things. And if that defense is going to keep doing what they do, and one thing that people are like, oh, they played the soft schedule, they scheduled Texas the first game of the year when they were number 1 in the country, and Penn State was number 2 in the country before the season. So I hate all like the schedule talk where it's like, no, they actually scheduled these teams. It just so happened that the teams really fell off the map, and that's not really, their fault. So just some funny things. And you look around, like how many great teams are there in college football? So everybody's schedule is going to look soft, honestly. So just something I wanted to throw out there, because it's like people are just really banging them for the schedule. And it's like they actually tried to schedule hard opponents, and it just so happened that just didn't live up to it. But yeah, very dominant performance. Got to give them a lot of credit. A little shaky in the first half, like you said, but that second half really showing their true championship. I just cannot wait for a potential Ohio State-Indiana matchup. We might not get it because Michigan will probably screw it up and beat Ohio State maybe at the end of the year, but that's going to be a really, really fun matchup because Indiana still looks really good too. So definitely number 1 and 2 in the country for sure, those two teams.
Yeah, that's what I'm most curious about. And we're not going to talk about Indiana on this episode just because they dismantled Maryland over the weekend which was, wasn't even close for like 5 minutes. And then Indiana just throttled them. But I do want to see, I am looking forward to that Ohio State Indiana game because both of those teams don't really have anything left in the regular season, with the exception of Michigan and Ohio State, which is we're all going to be watching that game no matter what the spread is there. And it is in Michigan. So I don't want to rule them out. But I do want to see, is there that gap between Ohio State and Indiana, or will we see it, or, how will that game look? And we will see it, well, possibly, assuming Michigan doesn't, change it all, before the whole playoff and everything gets settled, because it's going to be the conference championship game if it happens. I'm pretty much just trying to jinx it seems like right now. But that game, if we get it, will be crazy. It'll be before the final committee rankings come out. So we'll kind of see that gap going in the playoffs. So hopefully we get it. But maybe Michigan could win out. And if they do win out, they probably will get in as that 4th Big Ten team, actually, if they get the win over Ohio State with their current resume, I would imagine. But we'll just have to watch that. But anyway, Ohio State dominates, continue to do what they have to do, 38-14 over Penn State. Moving on to the SEC, Paisley, this is the one that I mentioned on the slate. Very frustrating. Texas 34 over Vanderbilt 31. I was on Texas coming into this game. I thought maybe they would get it together. I was high on Vandy, as you were kind of all year, but I looked like a genius for 3.5 quarters of this one. Texas is just running it away with it. Vandy came storming all the way back and nearly pulls off the upset. They needed an onside kick at the end, doesn't get it. But just a crazy game. Texas dominating for pretty much 4 quarters, not 4, but 3 quarters. Arch Manning plays a great game. He made a joke at the end I saw in his press conference about maybe that concussion helped him, which is possible. But Texas finally looked like themselves. I don't think they're still. Trust me, if you're listening to this podcast before, I was pretty low on Texas the last few weeks. I still am not sold on them by any means, but I just had a feeling they'd get it together for this game. They're back home. They finally look good. They looked like a solid, top 20 team, I would say. Now the next thing is, will they be able to keep it doing? Where does Vanderbilt also go from here? This is tough, with only 12 spots. This loss hurts for them. They can't really slip up again. But yeah, Texas hangs on, pushes it on the spread if you had it at 3, which is very frustrating. 34-31 under Vandy.
Yeah, this was absolutely domination from Texas, like you said. So that's why it's important to watch the game with your eyeballs, look at the box scores a little bit, dig in a little bit deeper, because if you don't watch this game, you're like, oh, Vandy got the cover, played it pretty close. Definitely not the case. It was 21-0 in the fourth quarter that Vanderbilt outscored Texas. Sometimes they go in those soft prevent defenses. Pavi looked good passing the ball. Got to give him credit there because they really weren't running the ball or were not running it effectively all game. But like you said, Texas, a little scary that they let them come all the way back. I thought Texas had this amazing defense that was so good and was playing good the first half, like you said, but I don't know what happened there in the second half. So just some of these teams, you just can't trust them even fully still. It's just so annoying. But now we're seeing Texas back in the playoff now. I don't know about that. I'd pump the brakes a little bit. They easily could have lost to Kentucky and Mississippi State the last 2 games, and they had a good show in this game, like we called. And you called it very well, Case. And I stayed off the fence, went on the under. And for some reason, Vanderbilt just forgot how to tackle. I watched that first drive. They missed, I think, like 5 or 6 tackles on the first drive. And I was like, yep, under's cooked. It's done. So I don't know what Vanderbilt, it could have been a little fatigue. It could have been, like we said, they had the big games to travel. But they were just sloppy. And you don't expect that from a Clark Lee defensive-minded team. And they have not looked like that all year. So that was just really, Texas was just throwing screen passes all game in the first half, and they just couldn't tackle. It literally looked like a Pee-wee football team out there. It was very embarrassing. And then, the second half, like you said, Vanderbilt just stormed back, which was very surprising, definitely. But yeah, it was all-around crazy game. Nice win for Texas. I can't believe if you had Vanderbilt plus 3.5, you must be wishing your lucky stars there, because that is insane that they got there. But another game where we talk about numbers matter a lot. So hopefully if you grab Texas, you got maybe an early money line or minus 2.5. If you got Vanderbilt, so, it's not everybody wins, everybody loses. So it really does depend where you get these numbers. We talked about that 2-point conversion before we started. I don't know when that was. I forget when that was, if it was third or fourth quarter, but he looked clearly down before. Then they kind of just marked it like, yep, no, he's in. And then it actually did at least come to play in the betting market, but it actually could have been if they would have got that onside kick and then they only needed a field goal instead of a touchdown. So every point matters. Every little call matters. We know this from watching games for so long. Take nothing for granted. You need every little point. You can get every break. But yeah, definitely Arch is definitely playing a lot better. He's definitely looks a lot more comfortable. And that was a big piece that he came back and looked good. So very, very interesting matchup now going to Georgia, I think next week, not this week coming up, but the one after it. And then even if they get past that case, you still got to go and host Texas A&M, who's looking really good. So I don't know. Texas Longhorns, if you're a fan, I'd kind of pump the brakes there. I still think nice win, but I don't think you're making the playoffs. I think you still got to win out here. I don't know if you're getting in with 3 losses unless they somehow, maybe beat Texas A&M at the end of the year. Still a lot to be thrown out. So playoff talk and all that stuff. The ranks coming out on Tuesday. There's still a lot of games left to be played, and a lot will shake itself out. But nice win from Texas. Vanderbilt, like you said, these were the holes we were seeing. Case the offense just didn't look good. Defense played well against Missouri, but it was back quarterback got a little fortunate. And I hate to say it because they are my team, but I just don't think they're playoff material. And my gut feeling after that Missouri game was right. They just didn't look good. So very upsetting for Vanderbilt, but good win for Texas. But I don't think it's going to last. I think both these teams missed the playoff.
Yeah, I mean, very well both teams could miss. The one thing going for, you could look at it, if you want to look at the positive for both teams, you could say Texas, you have everything still in front of you. So at least if they do go ahead and they beat Georgia, they beat Arkansas, and then they beat A&M, they'll certainly be in at 10-2. But to your point, that's very unlikely. I could see them having, 2, if not, they could theoretically lose all 3 I could see that happening. I think they'll probably definitely lose to Georgia on the road in 2 weeks, and then A&M at the end of the year. But you never know. A&M, that's a rivalry game. So if they get through Georgia, watch out.
Yeah.
They'll definitely have a shot. And then Vanderbilt, much easier schedule for them. But even if they take care of business, I don't even know if that would be enough for them at this point. I think it would be very close for them. We'll have to see Tuesday where they open up. But with Auburn, Kentucky, and then at Tennessee, they got to win that at Tennessee game, obviously. But even if they finish 10-2, it's going to be interesting to see where they shake up, and a lot will actually tell us this Tuesday. Even for yourself as a Notre Dame fan, where will the committee rank these teams? And it's important because this is going to be the ranking that will determine the final 12 bids at the end of the year. So got to see where that starting point is for the final 4 weeks. Where will Vandy be slotted? If they're go ahead and, close to that 12 range already, I'd say, all right, they take care of business, they'll be in. But if they're sitting back there at 17, 18, even if they win these 3, it's going to get really shaky at the end. So just keep that in mind here over the last 4 weeks.
Yeah, it's a lot to play out. But again, some of these big wins that you might think you had at the time, like look at Vanderbilt. They beat LSU, who was ranked at the time, and now Missouri. Missouri's a backup quarterback. They could lose a couple more, and LSU might just go in the tank too and lose. So are those wins even going to look good at the end of the year? Still so much to play out. But like you said, it's going to be – these resumes are going to keep changing week by week. So if you beat a team, you really need them to win. You might need some help. So it's going to be very, very exciting.
Moving on to the American Conference here. Game that we were right on the spread. North Texas getting the win, 31-17 over Navy. Navy, of course, lost their first game of the season. They were 5-0 in conference coming in, undefeated, kind of a Cinderella story a little bit, but we know how tough their schedule gets. North Texas, though, still in the hunt for the playoff. And with all this chaos around them, it's still possible. They didn't look fantastic. I thought maybe they would look a little bit better. The spread was only 6.5, though. So maybe in my mind, I was just giving them a little bit too much credit and looking down on Navy a little bit too much. They won this game, though, handily, 31-17. It was 24-10 at halftime. So it wasn't quite, very close. Navy never really felt like they were going to win this game. I was impressed, though, how they held their own. But North Texas, at the end of the day, gets the win, gets the cover, and there's still in the driver's seat here in the American, and what's going to be a fun conference here coming down the last 4 weeks. Still 2 or 3 teams that could, break through there. But North Texas covers and gets the win and remains alive here for that final group of 5 spot.
Yeah, I try to tell you, Casey, even though it sounds like I'm bagging on our troops overseas here in the U.S., but this Navy team is just fraudulent. They're just very fraudulent. It happened last year. I think it's the same thing this year. Just looking at the American standings, there is 6 teams that have 1 loss at the top of the conference. So a lot of chaos still be played out. But that was a huge win for North Texas because that really puts them in a good spot. If Memphis keeps winning, if the South Florida loses 1 more, I think it'll be them and Memphis in the championship. So still a lot to play out there. But this Navy offense just really struggled against North Texas. Couldn't really get it going. Couldn't sustain their long drives. Credit to North Texas for stepping up to the plate after some bad defensive performances the last couple of weeks, especially against South Florida. And the offense definitely left some out there. I had the team total in this game. They could have easily got over it. They were on pace in the first half. This game was kind of back and forth in the first half, and then it just stopped scoring in the second half, especially for Navy in the second half. But, they had some nice key turnovers, North Texas. They really looked good, so they got back on track. I think it could have been a little bit more lopsided if they would have kept their pedal down. They kind of just ran the ball, played it super conservative in the fourth quarter, and kept pinning Navy back because they knew they weren't really a dynamic passing offense. They could just keep pinning them. They knew they needed 2 touchdowns to get back in the game. So that was a little frustrating on the team total aspect. But, really impressive from North Texas. It was a big win for some tiebreakers and stuff. But like we said, Navy, again, a little fraudulent. Now they got to go on the road to Notre Dame. I already saw the spread, 25 points. So just maybe 1 year, the Navy, just keep looking at that schedule. Maybe they could get some big wins against some better teams early on, but they just don't play a lot of great teams early on. And then their schedule's been so backloaded the last 2 years. But never know with college football. They could always turn around, and there definitely could be upsets. But this was a nice win by North Texas. They really look good. And I'm hoping, just for no sake of money-wise or anything, I just hope they get to the American Championship and maybe get a little rematch against South Florida. I think that'd be a fun game.
Yeah, it's possible. Also, keep in mind, we could use this time too. Tulane had a loss last weekend, or I guess it was Thursday night. So this is our first podcast since then, but kind of a surprising loss there because they were that team that was still undefeated also going into it, I think, and at top of the conference, in the conference, I mean. and then they lose. They were kind of a dark horse team also in the American with South Florida, with Memphis. But now, with UTSA upsetting them, it kind of just throws a whole wrench in the whole thing with Tulane. So that really hurt their chances, especially, we'll have to see how it all plays out at the top of the conference. But kind of devastating loss. They're kind of out of the mix now, and then propels North Texas, Memphis, and USF kind of back towards the top of the top three of the American.
Yeah, they got boat raced by UTSA. They whipped them and blew them out by 20, 25 points. Some of these coaches that are getting, mentioned in like the open vacancies, that John Summerall from Tulane, great head coach, had a bad performance this week. Matt Campbell, like we were talking before we come on, he's getting buzz. Maybe he's going to go somewhere else, maybe NFL. Lost to Jeff Sims in Arizona State. Matt Rule is another one, just signed the big extension, came out flat at home against USC. So not to say it's everything, but just some of these coaches that were getting all talked up, maybe some buzz. Maybe they're a little distracted. Were they listening to some of the stuff? Were they interviewing? I don't know, but just something to keep in mind, because that Tulane game on Thursday night, I think that was, they looked like they didn't even get off the bus. That was a very, very embarrassing performance.
That's true, although Brian Hartline really did hammer it on against.
Yeah, I guess he looked good.
Which I'll be happy with if he's the head coach next year. We'll have to see. But yeah, that's a good point. Although Nebraska kind of seems to always just come out flat no matter who they're playing. So
that's true.
If that matters. But, all right, moving on. SEC, Georgia, Florida in Jacksonville. We thought it'd be a good game. We talked about it, got the thank God cover here at the end by Florida. Gunnar Stockton kneeling the ball 1 yard line. That was one of the most beautiful things I've seen in a long time, even non-sports related. That was just a great scene there to see him do that for me personally. Florida hung in this game. They were right there. They had the lead late, 20-17 in the fourth quarter. And they just couldn't get it done. They kind of just screwed it up at the end. Overall, though, the offense played fine. I mean, they didn't play great, but I think a lot of people didn't really think they had much of a chance. And I know that because the pool that I'm in and Paisley's in also, everybody was on Georgia -7.5, like 8 of the 12 entries. And of course, I was on Florida, which is also why it really, mattered on the spread, because it's like getting 2 games. Just a hard fought game. Florida was right there. Georgia, I'm still kind of, the same question marks I had about Georgia going into this game are still there. They're doing enough. This is still a very talented Florida team. So I don't want to just discredit this performance. It was a tough, gritty game. And they did, control it, and they had a couple things not go their way. But nonetheless, Florida was right there at the end. Georgia could have covered at the end, but if they wanted to, but really they didn't deserve to. Florida really played hard here in the fourth quarter and almost pulled off the upset. Yeah,
just as we're talking about this game, like, is this the Chiefs of last year with Georgia? Like, they're just winning all these one-score games, like coming down in the last second. It's like, how long could you, let that go and then get it out? But again, just like you said, exactly the same thing. Kind of got outplayed a little bit in the first half. They had a battle back. They were down 3 points with about 6 minutes left. And they had a nice breakout run for like 50, 60 yards. Florida, like you said, just didn't do enough to win the game, but they didn't mess up or didn't have any crazy, Florida type, bonehead mistakes. But to beat a top 10 team, at a neutral site, you got to do some plays to really separate yourself. And you could just never do it. And one stat here, Case, looking at the box score, 2 for 11 on third down, 0-2 on fourth down for Florida in the game. So money downs, key moments, like we talk about all the time in some of these big games, they just came up a little short. And Georgia is comfortable playing in these tight games. Like, that is something to say. It goes both ways. They're getting very lucky. They're not looking, that great, but they just always find a way, and they know how to stay calm. They know how to get a big first down, a big run, a big stop when they need it. That long pass down the field that Lagway had that just came up like an inch short. I thought he caught it, and then they called it.
Yeah,
that was weird. That was a huge play. Like, just little calls like that, and not to say, the refs are giving Georgia every game, but you definitely need some luck or some calls to go your way. But yeah, just another lucky, kind of escape at the end here. Georgia is a really good team. They're very talented, definitely top 10 deserving, but we're just not seeing it for 4 quarters. They either come out a little hot or they, or it's late. So if it's close and they have a shot to win it, they usually do pull through. But it's a dangerous game to keep living on. And like you said, it's not like they're playing a cupcake schedule. These are some really good teams that they're going up against week in and week out. But like I said, people are really giving Florida a lot of credit. I think I was more impressed with Florida coming out of this one. And, they're right there. They have the talent. They just can't seem to get those wins. And that's why Georgia's been winning championships the last couple of years. Like, they are just so good. These money downs, halftime adjustments, like we talk about all the time with Kirby Smart, just again dominating the second half. So Georgia's a very, very interesting team. Just can't put my finger on them, Case. They're so interesting. It's going to be fun to keep watching them week in and week out because we just don't know exactly what we're getting yet. And they only have one loss on the season, which is crazy. They should have a lot more, but very interesting game. And yeah, Georgia gets another win.
Also, a little sneaky spot for them this upcoming week at Mississippi State. They're got to go on the road on a red hot kind of offensive Mississippi State team. So if Georgia comes out flat in that game, that could be one. We'll talk about it on the preview podcast later in the week, but could be a sneaky spot for them. But yeah, Florida, like, kind of just reiterate everything you said. They're kind of the team that has the talent. They couldn't put it all together. Look, I don't want to blame the officials for that loss either, but I don't know how that's really not a catch. It looked like his gloves were underneath it, and I get you have to be 100% confident if you're going to overturn it. Fine. But then make that the standard across college football, because it's not. Because sometimes there is footage that we're like, well, it's still kind of questionable, but our gut is that his knee was down, or that he caught it out of foot in, or whatever it is, and they're always so close, and it seems like there's never any consistency. It's always just a coin flip when that ref comes back out. You never know what he's going to say. That's why I also credit the ACC. I think it was a winner of the week, like week 1 or week 2, but that like behind the scenes audio feed of when they're watching, that is a great feature, because at least you could, even if you disagree, at least I'm like, okay, well, that's why he said it. And it was just a quick call. This is what they looked at and saw. Like, I'd love to see how that review went down, because I just don't understand how it's not a catch. It looked like a catch to me. Not really why they lost, but it could have. I mean, Florida could have possibly won the game if that goes their way. So you never really know. But yeah, I'll take that time just for another moment to shit on the refs there. Not really thrilled with how they've been. I don't know. No, there's no standard, it seems.
But how many calls have you seen this year get overturned? I feel like every call is just getting upheld. Like, whatever they're calling on the field is what it's sticking as. They're not really, like you said, they're not. Maybe it's not 100% certain, but it's like, how certain you have to be. Like, if it's if you're pretty certain, I feel like it should flip. But yeah, some of these I just don't feel like they're overturning any call. It's just always upheld. It's always whatever was on the field. But yeah, don't be surprised now if Georgia gets screwed here, because they are going back to that Auburn game, and now look where Auburn's at. But like, some of these calls really did help them with the refs, but they'll be a team to watch.
Basically, I'll tell you one call that got overturned. It was the Penn State-Oregon game on that fumble that would have changed the game.
That is true.
Knee was knocked down, but somehow that was overturned. Anyway, won't go back, relive that game, but James Franklin could still be the head coach if that stands, in my opinion. Crazy. All right, moving on out of the SEC to the Big 12. Texas Tech at Kansas State. Totally wrong on this one. Thought Kansas State. I mean, they were playing their best football of the year coming into this game. Was kind of selling a little bit on Texas Tech. Thought Kansas State was ascending. Thought Texas Tech was descending. Totally came out on the road, dominating win, 43-20. This thing was maybe close for the first 5 minutes, and then Texas Tech really just kind of throttled them, pulled away. Never really had the spread even in question there with -7.5. Dominated the game, back up the leaderboard of the Big 12. That conference is getting a lot of fun here in these last few weeks. Same with the ACC, but this was a big one for Texas Tech. They needed it to stay in the playoff hunt here in the Big 12 race. They got it, and I was impressed with them. More to take away from them than I was really on Kansas State. I just thought Kansas State was playing good football. Kind of knew they were out of the Big 12 race already, but Texas Tech looks like they're right back where they were a few weeks ago.
Yeah, definitely tale of two halves here. Just looking back, Kansas State was down 5 at halftime, and then just the second half, I've never seen a more dominant second half. Like, Kansas State could not move the football at all. Texas Tech's defense really came up to play in the second half, kind of all game. Even they kind of held them to 7 points in the first half, like I mentioned. But Kansas State just could not get anything going. That defense definitely caught my eye for Texas Tech. And then if you want to be a top-tier team, need both sides of the ball. They definitely looked at it, and then their quarterback played really well. Got to give a lot of credit to Brandon Morton coming back after some injuries. It's every other game. The backup now I heard is out for the year, so now it's just him in the third string going forward. But he played one of his best games of the season, maybe of his career. really lighten up the Kansas State defense. And that's what I was kind of expecting. I wasn't expecting 43 points to get dropped on them, but I was expecting Texas Tech to have a little more success. I was expecting Kansas State to have some success too and maybe answer them score for score, but it just was not the case. They just really could not get it going. They really rely on that run game. Kansas State, they only had 126 yards rushing, which seems like, a decent amount, but they were getting 250, 300 the last couple of games. So really was relying on Avery Johnson's arm, which is not something you want to do. But no, really impressive to go in there. Just a fishy spread. We talked about a case like we did like Kansas State, but sometimes it's too good to be true. We'll get to another game with Cincinnati where it was, way too many points. Like, there's no way. And then sometimes they just lay the lumber on you. So, yeah, if you had Texas Tech, really sharp call, good call, kind of fell into it with the public maybe a little bit there on Kansas State. But it happens. We've had some other calls where it went the other way. We were on the public side maybe, and it actually went. But I was just looking 0 for 4 in fourth downs. I felt like every time I had this on the multi-view, I was looking over at it. Kansas State just kept not converting a fourth down and just kept giving the ball back. And Texas Tech was 2 of 3 on fourth down, so really efficient there. So just little things like that. But Texas Tech, really impressive. They really showed their muscle there after that really tough Arizona State loss. But Morton was out that game. So if he's in the game and he's healthy, they got a legit shot. They just got to keep him healthy and upright because I think they could be a team to definitely be reckoned with if they could keep him healthy and if that defense keeps playing at that level. The D-line is really, really good. They really have a good defense. So that's going to be one I hopefully they stay healthy and hopefully they could be a contender at the end. But they definitely very, very impressive showing in Kansas State. That's why you can't start off with 3 or 4 losses in a row because now they really needed that one. Season was kind of over, but now it's officially over. So Kansas State turned back to a pumpkin, I guess you could say.
Yeah, they're back to their normal selves, how they started out the season. But yeah, we got a great one coming up next week. Texas Tech BYU will determine the top of the Big 12. College game days going there to Lubbock, Texas. First time I realized I saw this on Twitter that they're going to be there since all the way back to 2008 when they had that huge game against Texas Tech, that Colt McCoy game, Michael Crabtree, which is a favorite all-time childhood clip for just watching college football. So that's crazy. This is the first time they're going to be back there against a very talented BYU team, unbeaten still BYU. So that's going to be fun. Big 12. It's really it could be anybody's conference too. You still got Utah in the mix. They kind of have 2 losses, but BYU, Texas Tech, Cincinnati, of course, they just got blown out by Utah, but they're all 4 or 5 teams kind of still within striking distance. Arizona State, of course, they lose their quarterback for the season, but they're still kind of hanging out there at 4-2 and in conference, not totally out of it yet. But nonetheless, that Texas Tech BYU game should really determine, I think, the conference, at least the final until we get to that Big 12 championship game on whoever that second team is will be the question.
Is College Game Day just doing all these Big 12 schools? So they went to an SEC schools every single week to start the year. Now bad. So I did not expect them to go there. But that's going to be a huge game in the spread. I kind of was looking 9.5 already on Texas Tech. So are we going to fall for it again, Case? Maybe take the big underdog, but I don't know. We will definitely be previewing that one, though. It's going to be a fun one.
Early lean to Texas Tech, but we'll see. I wish it was at night. It's at noon instead. I just saw it's on ABC.
Oh, really?
Yeah, noon. We got a noon game.
Not big anyway. That's weird.
Not big noon ABC. Yeah, I wonder who actually is the prime slot. I'm sure we could look. All right, moving on back to the SEC. Number 18, Oklahoma. Just when we thought Oklahoma was dead in the water a week ago, they go to Tennessee. They get the outright win, 33-27. Tennessee, man, that's got to be a frustrating loss. You're at home. You're in the playoff hunt. You're in the thick of things, and you just can't get it done over Oklahoma. Just never quite felt like they were going to get it done in this game. But a surprising result here, Paisley. I was very shocked at this one. Even though the spread was as close as it was, it just felt like at home that this is Tennessee's game that they have to have. It felt like that they were, right there. Aguilar, by the way, didn't have a terrible game. He put up like 400 yards passing. They were able to move the ball, but 2 interceptions, and they were just never able to kind of get back into this game. It was very close the whole way, but Oklahoma was just right there, kept it. Every time Tennessee would answer, Oklahoma would, go down and score. Also, a very back and forth game. And at the end, it wasn't enough. Oklahoma hangs on. They get the win on the road, signature win, and all of a sudden they're kind of back in the playoff hunt. I don't think they'll get in there, but sitting at 7-2, they got everything right in front of them. Also,
Yeah, this was a tough one. I was on Tennessee. Was almost going to make it my lock, and then I backed off. Thankfully, at the last second, but then I also live bet them, I think, 3 or 4 times in the game, and that screwed me late in the night. So I was really hoping for Tennessee there to pull it out. But yeah, interesting game. Tennessee, at least early on, they just couldn't build enough of a lead. Like they were dominating the first quarter. I think they were on pace for like 100 plays. Kirk Herbstreit tried like they had like 20 some plays in the first quarter, really controlling the pace. And it was a 7-7 game because of that crazy scoop and score. The turnovers were huge. The 2 picks that they had really killed their drives, obviously. The scoop and score was another big one. So, again, this was another game. And we were talking about this one while I was going on, Case. Just a lot of miscues on the Tennessee side. Like Oklahoma deserves a lot of credit. They played clean. They played well. Really good fourth quarter. They were really just driving, running the ball. Really impressed with how they closed out the game. But Tennessee should have been up 14, 17, nothing after the first quarter or even going into halftime. They just let Oklahoma hang around, let them hang around. And shout out that kicker from Oklahoma. We talk about some of these kicking woes, and I'll get to their names in a second. But he hit 3 50-yard field goals, 51, 55, and 55. Like he was money. And guess what? That's what kept them in the game. It kept it close enough that they didn't feel like they were out of it. That's like NFL rain. Like he was hitting NFL like easy, right down the pipe. A couple of them got over by a yard or two, but on the road, that's hostile environment. That is some big points. We talk about these little things all the time, these big games or big moments. Tennessee's kicker did miss a kick too. You know, it was only one kick, but you know, it was maybe important at the time. But just little things like that. Can you play clean? Could you just do what you have to do and not mess up and give the other team a chance? But when you have 3 turnovers, missed field goal, a couple missed blocking assignments, like it was just an ugly game. And they had a lot of yards in the second half. I think a lot of those passing yards came from a couple chunk plays that were kind of broken tackles, like weird plays at the end of the game. So I think some of those stats might be a little misleading because Aguilar looked rattled in the pocket all night long. And some of the throws he was making, even that could have got intercepted, he could have had a lot more. It was almost Carson Beck-like. Not to throw strays at our man Carson Beck there, but it was some bad interceptions. Like their offensive line had no chance against the Oklahoma D front. Their defense really came out and played really good. I know the stats don't really show it. They really settled in after the second, third, and fourth quarter. But Tennessee should have built more of a lead. It was very frustrating that they let them back in it. And then Oklahoma just closed it out. They had 192 yards rushing. Didn't really throw the ball too well. Mateer's still a little shaky throwing the ball. Definitely had his throws when he needed to, but it was definitely more short throws, like 5-7 yards. Wasn't really stretching it down the field, but they ran the ball really well. And Tennessee, I want to see their yards per attempt because I think they had to run it like 40 times, and they were just getting 2 or 1 yards every single time. They only had 63 yards rushing in the game, so it was just a frustrating performance. I know they wanted to stick to that run game, and that's what sets up some of their play action or deep shots, but they really could not run the ball. Aguilar looked bad in the pocket. Like you said, at home, under the lights, they had the blackout going, had the cool jerseys on, and just came up completely flat. So, you know, it's very frustrating for your Tennessee fan, and they've been saying it for years. I know they had that big Alabama win a couple of years ago at home there, and they beat Alabama last year. But besides those cases, you take those off the board, like where are their other signature wins? They're not really going on the road. They're not really winning these big-time games. So I think some of these, you know, you want to talk about teams falling short of expectations. I think Tennessee's got to be in that category because they beat up on the smaller teams. They crushed Kentucky. They look good in those games. But then when it's time to step up and play the big boys at home, you have a lot of things going in your favor. Just couldn't really hold up and just had a lot of time shooting themselves in the foot. I think back to a fourth down, they threw it to a guy who didn't have a catch on the year, which I kind of like that, like, you know, a little unsuspected. Hit him right in the face mask. He was looking right at it, hit him in the face mask, incomplete on fourth down. Like just little things like that. It was just so frustrating. That's where they were 0 for 1 on fourth down. And they had a perfect play call. Like Heupel came up with a perfect play, but you got to execute and you got to make these plays to win, hit them right off the face mask. So if you're a Tennessee fan, man, I feel for you. That was a very, very frustrating one. I felt like I was a Tennessee fan with how much units I had on them going to that game, but very tough one. And a lot of credit for Oklahoma. Big game now. I think they have a bye next week. I was just looking at their schedule at Alabama. That could be a huge one. If that defense keeps playing the way it does, maybe the tier gets a little healthy. They're starting to run the ball a little bit, which is something they couldn't do early in the season. Maybe Oklahoma runs the table and sneaks in. That'll be a very, very, very interesting game because I was impressed with Oklahoma going into that atmosphere and really controlling the game and looking really good.
Yeah, no, Oklahoma, if they win out, they'll definitely be in. I don't know if they will. They have 2 really tough games left, but yeah, the Alabama game will be huge. Remember, of course, they did knock them off a year ago, too, at home when they weren't even as good, Oklahoma. So that was a big game for them. And yeah, Tennessee. I mean, that's really. I mean, they're done. I mean, their season. Even if you can't, they're going to be 9-3. Even if they win out, and they still got to play Vandy. That's just not going to be enough. That roll the tape all the way back to September when they had Georgia on the ropes. That field goal attempt to beat them. That is going to live. That will be the highlight if everything plays out the rest of the way like we think it will for them. Go 9-3, miss out on the playoff. That's going to be just that breaking point. They needed to have that win. Maybe then you could even afford like this Oklahoma loss. I think it just got completely other season. It's just like one or two plays goes their way and it just kind of sets the tone and changes everything. But yeah, this is one that they needed to have because of that Georgia screw up. Now you're in a spot where you're 6-3, nothing else you could really do to prove yourself. And I think they are a talented team. I mean, they might even be one of the top 12 talented rosters. It just on you take every roster and look at your players, but it doesn't matter. You can't get it all together. One that they had to have at home against an Oklahoma team that I'm really just not even sold on yet. If they beat Alabama, it'd be another story. But yeah, game you had to have your Tennessee. Seems like just same thing every single year, and it ends this way. So disappointing. But basically, that's why college football's so great. And teams got to win. Some teams got to lose. It'll open the door for another Cinderella story. Maybe we'll see who gets in their place. Maybe one of these SEC or ACC schools will hop in, like SMU or maybe even Duke. Paisley, some are saying. So you keep that in mind. But yeah, disappointing if you're Tennessee.
Yeah, and just one more point. You brought up the missed field goal that they had with a couple seconds left against Georgia. What was the big play against Alabama that everyone talks about was the pick at the end of the half, right before, and that changed the whole game.
Right.
These are all self-inflicted wounds. It's not really the other team beating them. They're just shooting themselves in the foot. So that's when it gets really, really frustrating from a fan base.
All right, going to the Big Ten. Paisley, USC at Nebraska, hostile environment, blackout. Nebraska trying to get the win over Southern Cal. And I mean, this was just the most Nebraska kind of game ever. They went out. They were ahead in this game. It was 14-6. They were kind of holding their own, but I never felt really comfortable with just as how close as it was. They were never able to pull away. I think they got the ball back when they were up 14-6, like a chance to go and make it a 2-possession game. Never did. It stayed low scoring, not a ton of yards. And USC just kind of does enough to outlast. It seemed like as longer this game went, the more likelihood it was that USC was going to find a way to win. And of course they did. And just the most Nebraska way ever to lose that game on that 4th down and 1. The running back tripped over Raiola's leg or his own leg or both legs. I don't even know, but it was just nowhere to go from the start. And Nebraska lost the game. USC won the game. So they're still all of a sudden in this big playoff race in a way. I mean, if they win out, it'll be interesting to see where they are. And that's just how important Tuesday is also, just to see where these Big Ten schools are starting, like USC and Michigan. So that's one thing that they could look at. But man, if you're Nebraska, like just another golden opportunity, a game to, national spotlight on you, a great atmosphere at home. You had the screw up against Minnesota a few weeks ago. Now you have a top 25 USC team coming to your house and just laid an absolute egg, 17 total points only. Got to be disappointing if you're a Nebraska fan. It just seems like that's the story of the last 15 years really with them. But credit where credit's due. USC did what they needed to do. Didn't get the cover though. Got Nebraska plus 4.5. Very nice ticket there. But USC wins the game, and the fight for that 4th Big Ten spot is still on here after week 10. USC 21, Nebraska 17.
Yeah, it doesn't really happen a lot when you watch a game and you walk away being like, both teams suck really bad. Like, this was just frustrating to watch both teams play. And I was like, they could just end in a tie in college football. That's what they should have done in this game, because USC got the win, like you said, but they did not look good at all. These are just not elite programs. I felt like we were watching like a JV version of these teams going at it, but just so many mistakes, so sloppy. And, USC was celebrating big. They finally got their first win, I think, on the road in forever with Lincoln Riley. So, across out of the state of California. So, but they did not look impressive in doing it. They ran the ball well, but everybody's running on Nebraska. Like, that's just a common thread. They ran for 202 yards. So that's really where they won the game. Nebraska's pass defense was actually really good. Actually, kind of both pass defenses, but like you said, Raiola did go out with the injury. I think that was like mid-second quarter, maybe third quarter. I think it was mid-third quarter. right after halftime, and then they had to bring the backup in. He could not really throw the ball at all. They, like you said, they had to trip. I think the guy just tripped on his own feet, actually, it looked like, which was pretty surprising on that 4th and 1. So just the ugliest game. It ends in a half-point cover, which I think was deservedly so. Case with your Nebraska Cornhuskers, they did deserve to cover. And another game kind of like Tennessee, where it's in the first half. You kind of said you never felt comfortable. They should have had more of a lead. They just weren't really jumping out or really putting their foot down to really extend that lead. Mayava did not look comfortable at all. He looked really shaky all game. He was kind of relying on his scrambling ability. Couldn't really throw the ball. So, again, if you're really USC and you know the team, you should be like, we're not that good. But if you don't know the team and you're not a football knower, you're probably going to be like, oh, my God, we're so great. We won now. We're back. We have a chance. This team stinks, Case. They're bad. They're really bad. They got ran on a lot by Nebraska, too. They were really run the ball, ran for 188. And Nebraska, too, I don't know when they're going to be good. I'm not sure. You got Matt Rule now for another 20 years, so not sure if he's going to elevate you guys. But like you said, this was definitely another game where Nebraska could have won this one at home. Great atmosphere, great fans, too. Everybody was in black. Like, that was pretty impressive. They really did a great job of that. Such great atmosphere. I want Nebraska to be good. I know you've been dying for them to be good for the last couple of years, and they just cannot get it over that edge. But this was like two just horrendous teams going at it, and somebody had to win. But both of them looked really bad. Case didn't really walk away too impressed from both teams in this one.
Yeah, I heard some analysts online talking about how USC finally earned their Big Ten card in this game. They finally played down to the levels. I think it was meant for the opposite of played down to the levels of like sloppy Big Ten West, like Iowa.
West,
yeah, like like that Iowa, Purdue, like Minnesota.
It
like
should be the Big Ten West,
games that we've seen. I think that's what the context was made, that they won this ugly game. The only thing really USC has going for them is their schedule. It's a very reasonable schedule. I think they play Northwestern in a couple of weeks, so if they do run the table, it'll be interesting to see where they're at. They might have one tougher one. I'd have to look, but
they're at Oregon, second to last.
So that'll be their Super Bowl for them, and that'll determine if who gets in there. Which I imagine Oregon will be a pretty hefty favorite there. But yeah, the change of this game too. I was just looking up because I was trying to remember what play I was referencing, but it was 14-6, third quarter. USC turned it over. Nebraska has the ball in like the red zone with a chance to go up 21-6, and then they fumbled it. And then at USC, it just completely like that was the moment where it was like, this Nebraska's not going to win this game. But yeah, disappointing. Maybe there'll be zero playoff implications on this one, but just an ugly old school Big Ten West style game. So congrats to USC, I guess, for earning their Big Ten West card here. 21-17. Yeah, I don't know where Nebraska goes. Matt Rule. I saw the extension. Penn State's just getting all these coaches paid around the country. So keeping Matt Rule now, which I don't know if that's good or bad. Time will tell for them. But right now, not looking good for Nebraska. Same thing, it seems like, every year. All right. Moving on to Cincinnati at Utah. Might as well close with this. Big 12. Should have been a thrilling game. Was not. Utah just totally dominated Cincinnati, but at least this is opening up the excitement of the last 3 weeks, which we talked about it in the offseason. We talked about it in week 1, that now this new expanded playoff fee makes the Big 12 matter. These last few weeks of November when it's cold and it's Thanksgiving and there's these like 2 lost Big 12 teams going at it. Well, now it matters because now you have a whole fight here at the top of the Big 12 conference with Utah now back in the race here. Cincinnati dropping their first game in the Big 12. This thing just wasn't close. 45-14. It was kind of close early, but Utah blew them apart here in the second half, being able to pull away later. Yardage was kind of close, 480 to 427. Turnovers were close. Penalties were close, but second half came around and Utah just like the more dominant team. I think Cincinnati just wasn't really tested throughout the first half of the season, and maybe a little bit of Navy syndrome going on there, Paisley. I don't know, but not totally impressed with Cincinnati here. Not sure if they're a real contender in the Big 12 or it was just how their schedule kind of shaped up for the first 6-7 weeks.
Yeah, I think definitely more the latter. Still a solid team. I just think Utah's playing some really good football right now. They're really hitting their stride after that Colorado. I thought that was just how bad Colorado was, but Utah is playing really good. It was kind of the same kind of formula. Just run the ball, smash you in the face, play good defense. Cincinnati couldn't get first downs in the first half. It was just a lot of 3-and-outs. Looking at the total plays, Utah ran 84 plays, which is insane. That's a lot of plays. They had 40 minutes to 19 minutes in time of possession. So just some crazy, just overlying metrics there that really determined that they really did dominate this game. Like you said, the total yards were kind of close. Cincinnati had a lot of garbage time ones. So that's why you can't just go right off the stats. But yeah, Cincinnati, I think, was just a little bit more, still a solid team. I think they're definitely middle of the pack in the Big 12. They had some close wins too. Like I remember that Kansas game, they got a couple of breaks and they won. So definitely got a little fortunate, but yeah, definitely Waterman, it's level here. And Utah, I feel like I got to go back and watch that BYU game because I didn't really watch a ton of that when it happened. But how did they let that one slip? They had a lead in that one. And just looking how they looked the last 2 weeks, like they might not even make the Big 12 championship, but they might be the hottest team right now, them and Texas Tech. And also BYU, they had the bye last week, but they're playing some really good football right now, running the ball at an elite level. The defense is playing really good. They had 267 on the ground in this game, so they're going to be a fun team. Hopefully they get a little help. There'll probably be some chaos in the Big 12. Maybe a potential Holy War rematch would be a fun one, but we need Texas Tech to lose a little bit more. But Utah really playing some good ball. Got to give them a lot of credit. Did not see this much of a beatdown, but like you said, just second half got really away from them. Still got to see if they're behind, if they could throw the ball, Utah, which is, I think, kind of hurt them in a closer game state against BYU. But Utah, it's going to be tough because they might be playing the best ball in the Big 12 at the end of the year. But they might not even be able to get to that Big 12 championship. But definitely a very important showing. Like we said, if the line's that high, that's why you got to do your research or look into it. It's probably a reason. Wasn't even close to covering basically the whole game. So, yeah, Utah definitely the right side and was fishy, and it made sense because Utah just absolutely obliterated them.
Yeah, and I think we did reference to on the preview podcast a week ago that I could certainly see this going the other way. I won't be stunned because of this line. So, definitely some question marks coming into it. But yeah, Utah looks great. If I was a betting man, which of course I am because of this podcast that we're on, I think as long as Utah does take care of it, go 10-2, I think they'll find their way in the Big 12 championship. I don't know how, because you're right, they do have the second loss, but you have I think we're going to see some chaos here unfold. So I don't know. If I was Utah, I'd at least feel comfortable that as long as you take care of Baylor, Kansas State, and Kansas, I think it'll work out. But that's just me being an optimistic. I'm not looking at the schedules. I'm not looking at exactly what needs to happen, but it feels that way. Just because it felt like last year, maybe it's completely different. But last year, these last 2-3 weeks, it was like every team that was gonna clinch just lost, and they found a way just to kick the can to another team, and nobody wanted it. Whereas I think as long as Utah could take care of these three, they should be okay. But you're right. I mean, they may not be, which will be absolutely disappointing for them if they are that hot going in, and those two losses will keep them out. Like they can't make the playoff in an at-large bid. They got to get in with the championship, I think, at this point. Unless some really chaos happens around the country and they could grab that like 10 or 11 ranking, but I think it has to be the championship.
Yeah, that BYU game is just so critical, and just looking at it's tough, like we talked about in the preview, because of BYU and Texas Tech. Those are their two losses, so they don't have the tiebreakers there. So they need an extra loss from either of those teams, which BYU I think certainly could. Like we talked about their schedule getting hard, starting this week with Texas Tech. So I feel like that's their only way. Utah's if BYU loses. They need to lose 3 games, I guess, because they have 2 losses. Utah. Who else did Utah? Or it was both of them. Yeah, that's how the math works out with BYU and Texas Tech. But yeah, just that BYU game was just so killer because they would have been 1 loss each. Could have had the tiebreaker. They really could have been rolling here, but they definitely need a lot of help from one of these teams or Texas Tech to lose 2 more games too. So I'm pulling for them. I think we're pulling for them, but it's going to be tough sledding. But like we said, Big 12 always has some chaos, so it's going to be still fun down to the wire.
Maybe if there was like a 3-way tie situation where those 2 head-to-heads wouldn't matter and it would somehow get to a spot where that wouldn't. But yeah, that's a good point. Those 2 losses are critical. Like their best route probably would be BYU losing out pretty much, which might be unlikely, but we'll see. It is going to be crazy, I think, these last few weeks, as it always is in the Big 12. But all right, that is our recaps. I know we're over the hour here. Paisley, another week in, winners and losers. Always a very fun segment that we do every week. I'll kick it to you here on your winner here. Who do you think won week 10?
Yeah, my winner this game was also going on with Game 7 of the World Series, the Tennessee game. I did have it on one of the boxes. Probably not a lot of people did. Oregon State gets the win in the
Oh,
Pac-2 matchup,
Great pick.
10-7. Great, gritty game. I was kind of watching this game, and I was like, oh, like it's going good. It's low scoring. And I was like, oh, there's 2 minutes left in the game. It was the quickest game I've ever seen. It was just no scoring, a lot of punts, clock was rolling, and they get the win at home. I think they stormed the field, too, if we look that up. I think they stormed the field, which is awesome, beating Washington State as about 4.5-point underdogs in that one. So huge win for the Beavers there at home. They grabbed the first, and they are playing each other again for a 2-time back-to-back matchup. So if they could maybe sweep and get the Pac-2 title, that'll be big. But that was a huge win for the Beavers. So I think that's their second win on the season, and the other win was Lafayette the week before. So they were 0-7 before this game. So huge win for the Beavers, looking like the favorites in the Pac-2.
Yeah, that was a great pick. I actually had that also on the quad box with the World Series going on, and it was like, what a world we were living in that you could do that. And yeah, I saw Washington State missed like a late field chip shot field goal. They doinked it, right? Yeah, right at the end. Couldn't force overtime. Thrilling win there. That's a great pick. Shout out Oregon State a lot. A lot has gone against them the last few years, and of course only one win on the season. So this was a big win for them. So yeah, big shout out to the Beavers. My winner of the week is the Duke Blue Devils, Paisley. They get the win against Clemson. It was a little bit controversial with the pass interference call to extend their drive on 4th down. But look, we're not going to talk about that. We're going to talk about Duke, and they get the first win on the road at Clemson since 1980, Paisley. That is insane. I was minus 19 years old, I guess, at the time. Just crazy. Gets the win, put up a great offensive showing, a back-and-forth thrilling game, a ton of points scored in this game, 46-45. Manny Diaz goes for 2. And Paisley, they're the winner of the week for that reason, for just getting the win. But also, all of a sudden, Georgia Tech loses in the ACC. Miami loses in the ACC. ACC is wide open. If Duke could put it together these last 3 weeks, they could be right there sitting in the ACC championship game. I think they're good enough. I've been saying for a while they are the worst, best team in the country, meaning they're the out of all the good teams, they're like, they find ways to lose. They're just sloppy. And I know you were a victim of that early in the season, betting on them. But they're my winner. Maybe things are just going to go right for them in the month of November. There'd be no better time for it to happen. But yeah, between them winning and then Miami just pissing away the ACC, it seems, as I predicted weeks ago, I still think they're going to lose the game at Pittsburgh, but they're dead in the water. Miami at this point, losing to SMU. But great week to be a Duke Blue Devil.
Yeah, Duke's offense is so legit. Mensa's playing at such a high level. The game was so back and forth, ping pong style. I think it was in the 40s when the final score finished, like 40, 45, 44, something like that. Just awesome win for Duke there, like you said. And then counterpoint to that, what's going on at Clemson? No one's really talking about Clemson and Dabo. Like, we know they had those couple early losses, but what are they, 3-5 now? I think I saw or something like that. Like, that is horrendous. Dabo just wants to get fired, I think. Like, he's really talking in the press conferences like he just wants to get out of there. So very interesting. That could be another job that's possibly open. I wouldn't hold it against it. Like, honestly, it's crazy. Maybe Cristobal's done at Miami. I don't like. It's so funny now.
Did you see he made a joke about him getting fired in his press conference afterwards?
No, I didn't see that.
I'll send you the clip if anyone's listening. You got to look it up. And he literally was like, he made a joke. He's like, yeah, I might get fired, and he like points to the athletic director sitting in the back of the room. He's like laughing about it. Like, he clearly had no care in the world.
Or Dabo did that. I did. Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah.
Right about Cristobal. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. But yeah, Dabo, he just wants to get fired. Like, he's been talking about this all year. He's like, if they don't want to win, find somebody else, bring them in here. It's like, dude, if you just want to leave, dude, you could just leave and get out of here. But Virginia, shout out Virginia. That was a crushing loss to our Cal Bears there, but 5-0. They're looking like the front runners in the ACC. So who would have thought? But wild, still 5 or 6 teams still in play there. So that's going to be a fun race coming down to the American, ACC, and Big 12. Going to be fun.
Also, quick on the ACC, big shout out Bill Belichick too, winner of the weekend, getting his first signature win of his college career there over Syracuse.
Playing some good ball, quietly playing some good ball there. Shout out the Tar Heels there. And just wrap us up, loser of the week case. I'm going to go the Notre Dame special teams, especially the kickers. I have never seen a kicking team this bad. I said, like, I don't know if a team has really won a game without kicking besides the Valley Chiefs, who are a 7 and 8 year old. It's a team that you could play in Pee Wee football that doesn't kick extra points. Like, they can't even kick extra points. They tried 3 kickers. I think they brought the punter out for the last one, and he missed it. Like, it's becoming laughable. Wasn't too funny at the time, I'll admit, but it is becoming such a joke now. They missed a 33-yard field goal, 2 extra points. They missed a couple extra points last week against USC. They missed a field goal. Like, it's going to come back to bite them, maybe not in the rest of the regular season if they're not too close, but this is a real problem if they want to make the playoffs and win a playoff game or two, because they cannot even make extra points. They might just have to start going for 2 every time. Like, it's that bad. I've never seen a kicking situation, especially at a top-end school. This is not like UL Monroe had a couple kicking problems and they had a walk-on tryout. Notre Dame might have to do a walk-on tryout. They might have to open up the tryouts and see if they have a student that could kick, because it is atrocious. So I don't know what Marcus was doing in that department in the offseason, but please get a kicker, recruit a kicker. It's becoming very, very frustrating as a Notre Dame fan. It's insane. They're missing extra points. I've seen better kicking in high school in the state of Pennsylvania. So it is very frustrating here, Case.
Yep, Paisley, as a former kicker in high school yourself, maybe you could call Marcus Freeman up, see if you have any eligibility there.
I think I do in the NCAA. I think I still do.
Yeah, that is a bad problem, and I'm not following it as close as you, but I don't understand what's going on there with the kicks. And let me tell you, it will affect them in the playoff because you need to get it under control. I remember as a Bears fan, Paisley, rolling the tape back 7 years, the Cody Parkey double doink. I remember vividly all season long missing field goals. Left, right. We knew it was a problem. We knew it was an issue all year, but it was like, well, they're doing okay. You know, it's only a point or two. It may not matter. They're going to be in the playoffs. Like, whatever, he's fine. Well, it stung worse than ever when they lost to Philadelphia because of that double doink field goal. And it was a problem all season, missing kicks. It wasn't just that one kick, and it won't just be one kick. It will snowball into something. Once you're in a close game with Georgia or whoever in the, in the playoff, Indiana, whoever it is, you're going to need those extra points and field goals. And so they better get that straightened out. Definitely lose the week. I couldn't believe that multiple, 2 different kickers, I guess, right on Saturday, or was it 3?
I didn't even know they had 3 kickers on the roster, 2 kickers and the punter. They were trying out anybody. They might try out an offensive lineman. Like, I don't know what they're doing. Kickers are so important. Like, people don't want to, talk about it, but I'm watching that Oklahoma game. The kicker had, I think, 15 or 16 points himself on extra points and field goals. They won the game on the road by 7. They would not have won that game if he didn't hit every field goal. So it's so important, and it's super, super frustrating.
My loser of the week, Paisley, is the YouTube TV customers.
Great pick. Great pick.
It was an unacceptable Saturday experience. And look, I don't want to get into the politics of it all, whoever you want to blame, which I'm going to blame Disney. It is probably all ESPN. But we both did, $5 pass on Sling, by the way. And shout out to Sling. They're doing the best they could. They probably got a big influx of people on Saturday, $5 pass. But look, it's not YouTube TV. You can't stream multiple, quad boxes. You can't have 2 browsers open trying to game the system. I have a computer on one side of the room here where I'm sitting, and then I got the TV behind me. Like, I'm moving my head left and right. It's lagging. It just was not a great experience. They better figure this out, Paisley, because the viewer, it just made it difficult. You had all these ABC games, ESPN games, ESPN2 had some games. I don't know if this week was like particularly chosen, like, oh, we're going to really screw it up, because it was a very difficult experience. And I'm sure a ton of viewers, and if you're listening to this, you probably do have YouTube TV. I mean, odds are that's like the way everybody's going with streaming. Big loser of the week for all YouTube TV subscribers. Hopefully they get it done, fixed, because moving forward we'll have to change everything, because not going to keep YouTube TV obviously without ABC. But not a good experience, Paisley. Loser of the week. Shout out Sling, but got to get it fixed. Yeah,
that might be the pick of the year, Case. That was a great pick. That was so frustrating there were some games, like we talked about the Duke game, there was just no way to watch it on our end, and it was the best game of the day potentially. And oh my God, it was so frustrating. That just set us up, and we were just so angry from the start. And I was saying this too. I know a lot of people are college football fans. What if this happened in the NFL? There would have been a riot if this would have been an NFL and you couldn't watch NFL games, but it wasn't that big of a deal because it's college, but we love our college football. This has to get fixed. We got to do something about it. I'm spot on with you, but absolutely terrible. Absolutely terrible.
Yeah, it was unacceptable. Figure it out. All right, folks. Well, that is it. I know it was a long one, lot to just recap there. It's always exciting. Appreciate everybody listening out there. Give us a subscription on YouTube. Follow us on Twitter. We'll be back early this week to do our entire week 11 preview. Already first week of November. Should be another slate. And as always, we'll see you guys then.